Rutgers takes a step forward in the Big Ten. They defeat Maryland in College Park 31-17 in a really good and more significant win that you might think. Let's get to it. Okay, so Rutgers heads into College Park, Maryland, and defeats Maryland 31-17 as a 5-point underdog, 4.5, 5.5, whoever numbers you listen to. And this is a really good win. It's a very solid win. Is it a big, flashy, program-defining win against a 4-5 Maryland team? It's not, but here's some of the nuances we need to understand about this win over Maryland. Of course, everybody knows we've had difficulties defeating Maryland with the exception of the lockdown years with nobody in the stands. Maryland has kind of had their way with us. They've outscored us, 119-40 over the past 3 games. Tagliavoa had some big games against us. We really couldn't stop the Maryland offense. We had a terrible loss, 37-0, when we were going for bowl eligibility. We lost by 2 touchdowns last year, 38-24. And we get over all those humps. But here's the thing, and I've complained about this all season, our inability, and Pat Lanny touched on this a few weeks ago from NJ.com and Rutgers Rant, how we don't separate ourselves from our competition, from our peers. And for 2 weeks in a row, especially against Maryland yesterday, we actually did what good teams do. And we defeated a peer. I'm not sure that it's quite a rivalry game just yet, but we beat a rival. And we beat them by double digits. This seems like an innocuous small thing, but it's not. If you're going to be a good team, a good program, you need to beat teams that you're by significant margins, by double digits. Other teams do it all the time. We seem to be involved, whether it's Washington, nail biter against Washington. Even our 2006 win against Louisville, last-minute win by a field goal. Let's go out there and beat a peer and take care of business, and we did that yesterday. So good job by Rutgers getting over the October-November slump, and for the first time in a long time, I can had a really good birthday, celebrated a terrific, I don't ask for a lot, a Rutgers win on my birthday. Is definitely something that makes me happy beyond everything else. The Rutgers win is the most significant thing. We went 5 years in a row losing on or right around my birthday. Penn State especially, 27-3 loss last year, a 55-10 loss before that, 28-0 before that. 23-20 Illinois lost a year before that. Ohio State 56-21 before that. So getting a win on my birthday, more importantly, winning down the stretch when we've been fading every year because of injuries, lack of depth, lack of talent, or not enough talent, I should say. We actually can see ourselves turning the corner towards being a solid to good Big Ten program. Congratulations to Rutgers. Coach in the press conference, it's kind of odd. He looked really subdued, but more in a sigh of relief kind of way. He was really understated. He wasn't animated. He wasn't chippy. He just looked like a huge weight has been lifted off his shoulders. Now, we know that getting to a bowl game wasn't the goal, and especially with all the preseason hype, undefeated, 10-2, yada, yada, yada. But you can see in Coach's demeanor and in post-game press conference how he was just relieved. Okay, we got there. Now we have 2 more seasons left, as Coach likes to put it, against a really good Illinois team that, quite frankly, had an easier time with Michigan State yesterday than I would have thought. And we played both of those teams. We get to 2 wins. 8-4 was a lot of us thought was very doable. 9-3 would have been outstanding. 2 wins gets us to 8-4, and probably an invite to the bowls that were eligible for Citrus Bowl on New Year's Eve. That would be fun. If we split, we're probably going to Detroit or Arizona, or even if we lose to, probably going to Detroit anyway. Not eligible for the Pinstripe Bowl this year. But you want to make progress. You want to make progress, number one, on the field, results, and you want to make progress on paper and from a standpoint of the perception of the program and your ability to market yourself as a legitimate Big Ten program. So, Illinois, coming up next week, last home game of the year. It's going to be 2 similar teams. I've said all season. I've compared Luke Altmaier with Ethan, and as long as let's get to it. Let's get to why and how we won this game and who stood out. And this is what happens when you finally have a quarterback. It's amazing watching this team this year, much like the basketball. It's a great weekend for Rutgers athletics with a dominating Rutgers basketball win over Monmouth and Ace Bailey's return. But watching Rutgers football, like watching Rutgers basketball the other night, and how we're a high-flying, move the ball up and down the court, move the ball around, cut to the basket, 3-point shooting team, Rutgers football is a totally different animal to watch this year. And it all starts at the quarterback position. And for those who, dogged Ethan in the preseason and beginning of the season, and he's inaccurate, he's only 52%, and he kind of got pushed out of Minnesota. BS. Anybody who watched any games or any film of him at all understands that he's a good passer of the football. Lost a bunch of guys at Minnesota, lost a bunch of coaches, new system, yada, yada, yada. A lot of drops, 2 years in a row. He's kind of led the nation in drops. Or at least last year. This year, didn't get off to a good start. We're seemingly getting better at that. He had a great day yesterday. 20 of 30, 238 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, no interceptions. I think he's got 12 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Has hit 2,000 yards for the first time since Chris Laviano, and I think that was 2015. He of the 4th down spike. Nonetheless, Coach post-game press conference was talking about how the offense has evolved, become more comfortable, and I think he let his guard down a little bit regarding injuries. Usually he tries to be very coy with injuries, but he admitted in the post-game press conference, hey, we're hurt, especially on defense. And I think there's a lot of guys playing more injured and more hurt, which might explain our ineffectiveness on defense, and maybe some abilities to be a little more dynamic on offense. The offensive line yesterday, just the injuries continue to pile up. Tyler Needham is out. By the way, Abram Wright is also out for the year. We'll get to that in a minute. But we had Taj White at right tackle yesterday, Dante Chin in, Kobe Asamoah. And in addition to throwing bouquets at Ethan, we have to throw bouquets at a patched-up, reworked offensive line. 0 sacks. Let me say that again. 0 sacks. That's a great job. Yes, Maryland has given up some points this year, but when you're playing a Big Ten pro and you don't even give up a single sack by accident, that's a really good job. Now, the running game was a little patchy. Kyle had 25 rushes, 97 yards, just under 4 yards a carry. But he gets over 1,000 yards for the second year in a row, and we'll get to that in a second. But Ethan, we finally got a real quarterback, and when we hear him making progress in the Rutgers record book against the likes of Chris Laviano, Ethan is a far better thrower of the football I think he's very much underappreciated. And look forward to next year when we get A.J. Serace back. And Ethan is that guy. His senior year takes the next step while developing our quarterback of the future. And I'm looking forward to A.J. Serace being that guy, being that versatile, can run it and throw it kind of quarterback. Ethan also had some really good runs yesterday, some really good designed runs. I've been talking about that all year. How that's kind of a secret weapon. He's kind of underappreciated for that. And when we use him in those spots, it usually does pretty well. In addition to Ethan, the offensive line, we talked about this preseason, how on paper, potentially this wide receiver room is going to be the best wide receiver room that we've had in a long time, in 10 years. And we're starting to see the fruits of the labor of that wide receiver room. And these guys are starting to come together and be productive. Absolutely love Daimir being targeted a lot. Again, I think it was targeted 13 times last week. 8 catches, 107 yards, 13 and a half yards per catch, and a touchdown. He just seemed to be in the middle of the action on several drives yesterday. We scored, kneel down aside, 4 times in a row, which is another sign of an offense that's getting better under Kirk Shiraka. Absolutely, Kirk Shiraka has stepped up his play calling and game over the past few weeks, and he deserves credit for that. That's a really good job. We're starting to see how when he was in Minnesota and they were passing and rushing it for 200 yards each and had some good balance, we're starting to see that. But this wide receiver room, big day for Daimir. Ian Strong, another guy all over the place, 7 catches, 86 yards. Average 12 and a half yards per catch and a touchdown. KJ Duff, 3 catches, 35 yards, just under 12 yards per catch. Ben Black had a catch for 7 yards. Kyle had a catch for 3 yards. The wide receiver room, now we don't have to be worried about throwing the ball and having to protect the quarterback and the lack of athleticism at wide receiver by running Kyle into the ground. We have legitimate wide receivers, and going forward, these young guys are going to be really good. Of course, the other, positives, although Kyle didn't have the big game from a numbers standpoint, said in the preview that in order to nullify somewhat Maryland's passing game with Mike Loxley and Billy Edwards, we're not necessarily going to have to be a 3 yards in a cloud of dust kind of game, but manage the pace of the game, take your shots downfield, and we kind of did both. Kyle, 25 rushes, 97 yards, just under 4 yards per carry, but he had a 70-yard touchdown called back. That would he would have had 160 yards, over 160 yards. In a we had a sort of an off game yesterday when it came to penalties. We'll get that into that in a second. Let's go over some stats. So Maryland, they were going to. Oddly, a lot of people thought this game was going to be a shootout. Rutgers is not a shootout kind of team. They're just not that kind of team philosophically or play call execution-wise that's going to kind of meet what you do on offense and march the ball up and down the field. It doesn't match well with their desires to play complementary football. Maryland at times moved the ball, and you're like, okay, here we go. But the Rutgers defense, and we'll get to them in a minute, good job that they did. Bend, but didn't break. So Billy Edwards got some of his yards, but Rutgers on defense made the stops when they had to make them. Let's get to it. First downs, Maryland 27, Rutgers 24. A lot of that, the second half, Maryland playing a little bit of catch-up. Started off as a defensive struggle. It was 3-0 midway through the second quarter. Like, wow. Boy, this game is causing a lot of people to be surprised. Wound up being 14-10? 14-10 at halftime. Third down conversions, Rutgers 6 for 14, Maryland 8 for 17. A lot of that in the passing game, the wide receivers and the running back. Hemby, and we're struggling with running backs, not only in the running game, but catching the ball out of the backfield. He had a big day yesterday. He had, I want to say, almost 160 total yards rushing and receiving. Fourth down, we turned the corner yesterday. We were 3 for 3. And it wasn't with cutesy, ridiculous kind of plays. We executed the way we needed to execute, and we did a good job, got over the hump, and that provides some relief for coaching staff that on fourth and short in the red zone has not been very good. So kudos to Rutgers coaching staff there. Maryland was 3 for 6 on fourth down, turned the ball over 3 times, which is another part of the Rutgers defense that did well yesterday. Total yards, 370 for Rutgers, 457 for Maryland. That's just what they do. Maryland had a lot of plays, 82 to ours 67. We had 132 yards rushing to Maryland's 123. Maryland total yards passing 335, 238 for Athan. Red zone, we were not great. Past couple weeks has been much better. I think before last week's game against Minnesota, we were like 72, 73%, 74%, whatever it was. It was like 120th, 122nd in the country, whatever it was. 3 for 3. Maryland 2 for 4 yesterday. Penalties. This could have been a bigger problem than it was. We had 8 penalties for 80 yards, nullifying a Shaquan Loyal interception and a Kyle Monungai 70-yard touchdown. It didn't come back to bite us in the ass, but nonetheless, it's something we need to be careful about going forward against Illinois and Michigan State. In addition to Kyle's 97 yards rushing, Athan 7 for 26, Antoine Raymond 4 for 14, just about 3.5 yards per carry. Let's get to the defense. It was a bend but don't break defense that did a good job and got the ball on downs at moments when you thought, okay, Maryland's passing game is kind of clicking. Will they be able to finish the drive? And we stopped those drives, and that's all we needed to do. Aaron Lewis had a sack. Jordan Thompson had an interception. Shaquan Loyal should have had an interception that was called back. Some hand fighting going on in the Rutgers secondary that they called interference. Shaquan Loyal had a really good game. 13 tackles, should have had that interception. So a combination of the offense picking up speed, moving the ball, but having a passing game that could complement the running game, or the running game complement the passing game, and the defense making enough plays and playing well enough. And quite frankly, Billy Edwards in the first half didn't really do much of anything. Ty Felton, going to be a high draft pick. It was a quiet 6 catches for 61 yards. He had a touchdown. Hemby had 5 catches out of the backfield for almost 60 yards. Wade was the big guy for them yesterday. 7 catches, 92 yards. Prather had 5 catches, 76 yards. So, playing from behind, throwing the ball a lot. 55 times. If you have to throw it 55 times, especially in the Big Ten, you're probably losing. And that's exactly what happened yesterday. Now, coach in post-game press conference said, they got banged up a little bit again yesterday. I'm not feeling good about the way he said that. It was kind of very direct. So we're going to have to see who comes out of this game banged up that won't be playing in an important game next week against Illinois. If we have visions of going 4-0 down the stretch, we can patch things up in the short term, as Coach said when he talked about the defense playing better. And short term, they just had to figure out how they were going to put guys in position in order to make plays. Long term is another story, but we're going to see if there's going to be more patchwork that has to be done against Illinois and Michigan State. Nonetheless, complimentary football, moving it and making plays on defense and enough plays on defense yesterday. That's a really good job. Maryland presented a Will Rogers, Washington kind of problem for us on offense, and we managed it pretty well. By the time the beginning of the fourth quarter, middle of the fourth quarter came along, you knew that there was no chance that Maryland was going to put this out. So, great job by Rutgers going in and beating a foe, beating them by double digits. That seems like a small thing, but that's what you want to do if you're a climbing program. You want to beat the really good teams like Illinois next week, and then you want to go into Michigan State and you want to beat a floundering 4-6 Michigan State team. You want to go in there and handily beat them. They started off the season kind of, I think they might have been 3-0, and they were playing pretty good defense, but they just couldn't hang in there and wind up losing down the stretch considerably to better teams. But now they just seem like they're falling apart. Let's go into Illinois, last home game of the year. Let's play a really good game. Let's get that win number 7. And then we'll look forward to Michigan State the week after that. If we can have 3 seasons, 4-0, 0-4, and 4-0 and be 8-4, I think a lot of people would be happy. I think it's a good barometer for the program. Everybody enjoy the rest of your weekend and the week coming up, and we will see you